The Epic Tale of Jack, Jill, and the Magic Can, a Pirate's Tell of Tales. Ah, gather round, ye landlubbers and sea dogs alike, for I'm about to tell you the truest, most honest tale ever spun on the seven seas. Every last detail, every twist and turn, I swear on Davy Jones's own beard it's all true. Now, there may be some out there who've heard this tale before, but only the luckiest of souls have the privilege to pass it on. So lean in close, for this story's one you won't forget. And if you feel the need to embellish it a bit in the retelling, well, all good tales deserve a little extra spice, don't they? It all began with a can. Not just any can, mind ye. No, this can was magical. But to the naked eye, it looked like a simple tin of high-fiber beans, just the sort of thing you'd pick up on a lazy day in a general store and think nothing of. But that's where the magic was. You see, the can could change its form and color, shifting to blend in wherever it went. It might look like a can of beans one day, or an oil can the next, or even a can of paint if it suited its fancy. But it held something far more valuable than beans. Inside was a treasure map, hidden, safe, and undetectable. Now, this story isn't about the can alone. No, no. The real stars of this here adventure are a fearless lad named Jack and his sarcastic, ever-loyal best friend, Jill. Jack was the kind of kid who could stare down a storm and grin. Bold as brass he was, but with a heart of gold. And Jill, well, she was just as brave, but a bit sharper in the wit department. She had a way of always getting the last word in, but never letting Jack stray too far into foolishness. You see, Jack wasn't just any lad. He was the son of a pirate. Not just any pirate either. He was the son of the infamous Redbeard Roberts, the most feared and respected pirate ever to sail the seas. Though the world thought Redbeard had disappeared long ago, marooned or perhaps even dead, the truth was far more mysterious. Redbeard had gone into hiding, you see, and sent one last piece of his legacy to his son. The treasure map in the magic can. The problem was, Jack didn't exactly know how to read the map. It wasn't like any ordinary one, and it had to be activated, you guessed it, by luck, happenstance, or a sharp eye for detail. But that didn't matter to Jack. He knew one thing for sure. Somewhere out there, his father's treasure was waiting for him. One fine day, Jack and Jill were sitting by the docks, taking in the salty sea breeze, when a mysterious stranger hobbled into view. He was a weathered old man with a patch over one eye and a peg leg that clunked with every step. His name? Captain Grimscale, or at least that's what he called himself. At first glance, he seemed like a down-on-his-luck sailor just looking for work, but beneath that craggy exterior, something darker lurked. Grimscale, had plans. "Aye, laddie, you look like you've got the sea in your veins," the old man rasped, glaring at Jack with one good eye. "Word round these parts is you've got something valuable." Jack, always too eager to prove himself, puffed up his chest. "I might," he said, with a glance to Jill, who rolled her eyes. "What's it to you?" The old captain grinned, a gap-toothed, crooked grin. "Treasure, lad. The kind that'll make you richer than the king himself. But ye can't get there without a proper guide, now can ye?" Jill, never trusting strangers, leaned in close to Jack. "I don't know about this guy," she muttered. "He looks like he got lost on his way to an 18th century costume party." But Jack was intrigued. "Maybe he can help us. He looks like he's been around." Grimscale, overhearing Jill's comment, chuckled. "I may be old, but I've still got a few tricks up my sleeve. You've got the map, haven't you?" Now, Jack wasn't the type to go showing off his inheritance, but something about the old man's words sparked a fire in him. After all, how could this stranger know about the map? With a sideways glance to Jill, who sighed and crossed her arms, Jack pulled the magic can out of his satchel. "Ah, that's the ticket," Grimscale crooned, his eyes gleaming. but you'll need me to help you read it." Without waiting for permission, the old pirate swiped the can from Jack's hands and gave it a good shake. Nothing. He turned it upside down. Still nothing. "You see, it's enchanted," Grimscale muttered. "Needs a bit of luck to get it going." But luck was Jack and Jill's forte. After all, they were experts at flying by the seat of their pants. Jack took the can back, and sure enough, as he gave it a casual flick, the label shimmered and revealed the first part of the map. Though it was written in a strange code, neither of them could decipher. "Leave it to me," Grimscale said, pulling out a magnifying glass and mumbling as he scanned the strange text. "Aye, the treasure's buried on Skull Island." Jill snorted. "Of course it is. Couldn't have been something less ominous like Rainbow Meadows?" The three set off on their adventure, Grimscale leading the way, though Jack and Jill kept one wary eye on him the entire time. Along the way, they had more than their fair share of luck and happenstance. When they needed a boat, one just happened to wash ashore. When they were hungry, coconuts fell from the trees right into their laps. And when they encountered danger, like that time a giant squid nearly swallowed their boat, Jill's quick thinking saved the day when she used the can to catch the squid's attention, making it think it was a shiny treasure chest. The Journey to Skull Island. The three of them, Jack, Jill, and Grimscale, stood on the docks, with the smell of the sea thick in the air. They hadn't even secured a ship yet, and already Grimscale was getting twitchy. He paced back and forth, muttering under his breath, while Jack stared out at the horizon, eager for what lay ahead. Jill, however, kept a sharp eye on their newfound guide. Something about the way Grimscale's hand never strayed too far from his belt made her suspicious. "Jack, are you sure about this?" she whispered, nudging him with her elbow. "This guy gives me the creeps, and I don't trust his taste in headgear either." Jack glanced at Grimscale, who was busy scratching his scruffy chin with his good hand. "He seems a little rough around the edges, but he's a pirate. Pirates are supposed to be like that." "Rough around the edges? Jack, the guy looks like he's been marinated in a shipwreck for 10 years and wrung out to dry. I'm telling you, something isn't right." But before Jack could respond, a stroke of luck, or perhaps fate, stepped in. There, at the far end of the dock, a small but sturdy boat, as if summoned by the seas themselves, gently bumped against the pier. It was in better condition than any vessel they could have hoped for. Its sails were white as the clouds, and the wood gleamed like it had just been polished by a meticulous shipwright. "Well, would ye look at that?" Grimscale barked, rubbing his hands together. "The sea gods smile upon us today, eh?" Jill eyed the boat suspiciously. "Convenient, don't you think?" she muttered under her breath. Still, they couldn't pass up the opportunity. The three boarded, Jack with boundless enthusiasm, Jill with quiet suspicion, and Grimscale with a gleam in his eye that could only be described as greedy anticipation. As the boat set sail, the magic can, ever faithful, remained tucked safely in Jack's satchel. For the first few days, everything seemed fine. The sea was calm, the wind was strong, and food seemed to find them rather than the other way around. Whenever their stomachs grumbled, coconuts dropped from the palm trees on a nearby island. When they thirsted, a rainstorm would roll in just in time. It was as if the world was on their side, guiding them to their destination. But even luck can cast shadows. Mistrust and mystery. As the days passed, Grimscale grew more impatient. He would pace the deck at night, mumbling to himself, staring out at the horizon with a wild look in his eye. Jack, ever the optimist, shrugged it off, but Jill wasn't so easily convinced. "I don't like the way he's acting," she said one evening, as the two of them sat on the deck, looking out at the stars. "He's hiding something." Jack laughed, though it sounded a little forced. "You're always suspicious, Jill. He's an old pirate. Of course he's going to be a little rough, but he's helping us, isn't he? We wouldn't even know where Skull Island is without him." Jill crossed her arms, narrowing her eyes at Grimscale, who was now muttering to himself near the helm. "Yeah, but how does he know so much about the map? And have you noticed how he keeps glancing at your satchel?" Jack shifted uncomfortably. He had noticed, but he didn't want to admit it. He trusted people, maybe a little too much. But that was Jack's way. "You're overthinking it," he said finally. "We just need to stick together. The treasure's almost ours." But that night, Jill couldn't sleep. As the boat sailed silently through the dark waters, she heard a soft, shuffling sound. She opened her eyes and peeked out from under her blanket, just in time to see Grimscale sneaking toward Jack's satchel. The old pirate reached out, his gnarled hand trembling as he opened the flap. "Hey!" Jill's voice rang out like a cannon shot. Grimscale jumped back, his hands snapping away from the satchel like it had been burned. "I wasn't doing nothing," he hissed, his one good eye darting nervously. Jack woke up, groggy and confused. "What's going on?" Jill glared at Grimscale. "I caught him snooping around your stuff." Grimscale's face contorted into something between a sneer and a grimace. "I was just making sure the map was safe. Can't have it falling into the wrong hands now, can we?" But Jill wasn't buying it. "You're the only one here with the wrong hands." The tension in the air was thicker than the fog that had begun to roll in. Jack looked between his best friend and the old pirate, his mind reeling. Was Jill right all along? Could Grimscale be trying to double-cross them? Grimscale, seeing the doubt in Jack's eyes, chuckled. "Oh, ye paranoid. All this time on the seas making ye see things that ain't there. Trust me, lad, we're all in this together." But Jill didn't let it drop. The next morning, she found Grimscale whispering to himself again, this time with a map of his own in hand, one that didn't match the enchanted one hidden in Jack's satchel. Her instincts told her they were heading for trouble. Danger on the high seas. Their doubts were interrupted when, out of nowhere, a giant shadow appeared beneath the waves. The water rippled, the boat shook, and suddenly a monstrous tentacle rose from the deep, raping itself around the mast. "A giant squid!" Jack shouted. Jill rolled her eyes. "Of course it's a giant squid. What else could possibly go wrong?" But despite the sarcasm, it was Jill's quick thinking that saved the day. As the squid tightened its grip, she snatched the magic can from Jack's satchel, shook it vigorously, and tossed it overboard. The can shimmered and transformed mid-air, landing with a splash in the water as a glittering treasure chest. The squid, mesmerized by the gleam, released the boat and dove after the treasure. The ship rocked violently, but stayed afloat, thanks to Jill's fast moves. Jack looked at her with a mix of awe and gratitude. "You saved us," he said, breathless. Jill shrugged, though she couldn't hide the grin. "Somebody's got to keep you alive." Grimscale, meanwhile, was suspiciously quiet. He hadn't lifted a finger to help. In fact, he seemed annoyed that they had survived. "I don't like this," Jill muttered, once they were back on calm seas. He didn't even try to fight the squid. What kind of pirate doesn't defend his own ship? But before Jack could respond, Skull Island loomed on the horizon, its jagged cliffs and ominous silhouette filling them with both excitement and dread. As they sailed closer, Grimscale's true nature began to reveal itself even more. He muttered under his breath about the fortune that awaited, and how no one would take it from him. Arriving at Skull Island. By the time they reached Skull Island, the air was thick with tension. Jack felt the weight of the adventure ahead, but his heart was still set on finding his father's treasure. Meanwhile, Jill kept one hand on her trusty knife, her eyes always watching Grimscale, who was now more like a coiled snake than a helpful guide. As they rowed to shore in a small dinghy, Grimscale's impatience grew, his hands twitching, as if he were already holding the treasure in his grasp. But little did he know, Jill had a plan of her own. She wasn't about to let some cranky old pirate outsmart them. And so, with the island in sight and the treasure just within their reach, the adventure took a darker, more dangerous turn. Trust was fragile, and betrayal hung in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. But you know the rest, don't you? Stay tuned, 'cause things are about to get even wilder as we reach the climactic showdown. But it wasn't all fun and games. As they approached Skull Island, Grimscale's true colors began to show. He became more impatient, more greedy, and his eye gleamed a little too hungrily when they finally landed on the island's shores. "Stay close," he muttered as they trekked through the jungle, his hand always hovering near his rusty cutlass. Jack and Jill followed cautiously, but even then, the clues from the can kept popping up, providing just what they needed at every turn. It was near the treasure's location, deep inside a cave marked by a skull-shaped rock, that the final clue on the can revealed itself. But it wasn't a map to treasure. It was a message from Jack's father. "Jack," it read, "if you've made it this far, I'm likely not far away. Look for me under the palm tree on the highest hill." "Your father's alive?" Jill whispered in awe. Grimscale overheard this and cackled. "Aye, he's alive all right, but that won't help ye. The treasure's mine." With a swift move, Grimscale lunged for Jack, but before he could lay a hand on him, Jill, ever the quick thinker, used the magic can one last time. She tossed it like a bean can grenade, and when it hit Grimscale, the can transformed into a blinding flash of light. The old pirate stumbled back, blinded, and Jack and Jill made their escape. Up on the highest hill, just as the message had said, there was Jack's father, Redbeard Roberts himself, looking older, but no less fierce. He embraced Jack and Jill, grateful for their help in thwarting Grimscale, and together they watched as the old pirate, blinded by greed, stumbled into the jungle, never to be seen again. And so Jack, Jill, and Redbeard Roberts sailed off into the sunset, the treasure they found not being gold, but something far more valuable: family, friendship, and adventure. And that, my friends, is the true tale of Jack, Jill, and the magic can. A story so wild, so epic, that every time it's told, it gets a little grander, a little more colorful, and just a tad more ridiculous. So go on, pass it along, and don't forget, every good tale deserves a bit of embellishment. I swear.